you'd see this new document dialog by default. But if you get to a point where you want it and it's not there, you can go to File and say New Document, and it'll show up. As you see, because I've got my default settings, at least for a single page document, set to ledger size, which is a good poster size for a big poster. It's set that way, and the default unit, which is like what is everything measured in the program, is set to inches for me because I'm trying to design something that is going to actually be printed out at the size that it's designed at, and I want to be sure I know what that is. There are people who are more sophisticated than myself work in other units quite a lot, but for our purposes, I think inches is a pretty good one to work in. You can switch it. I mean, if you switch it to points, everything will get translated into points. But inches will make a lot more sense to people who are, learning, and to myself. So you can set the number of pages right here under options. You don't have to set any of this stuff correctly at the outset. It's perfectly okay to to make wrong choices early on, because you can go in within the program and change what the properties of the document you're working on are. You can change the size of the paper, you can add additional pages to it and whatnot. But, it makes sense if you're making a one-page thing to start with one page, and it makes sense if you're making 3 pages of the same size thing to go ahead and do that now. But we're doing one page. We say OK. This section over here, margin guides, it's a good idea to find out from the place that's going to print it, or if it's your own printer, what the edge that the printing press or your printer can actually print to. Like what part of the page does it not reach to because it has to feed the paper through, and then set it to this. But for now, this seems like a pretty healthy margin that they've given us. Bleeds is a way of setting an artificial margin for if you're going to make you're going to print something that's going to go to the very edge of the paper. That means you're printing on a larger sized thing that's going to get cut down. The bleeds is a way of setting that. I feel like that's a pretty advanced topic, one that I'm not super knowledgeable about, and frankly, it confuses me a little bit in this particular program. But if anyone is particularly interested in printing all the way to the edge of something, I can do a tiny amount of research and answer that question in the future. Anyways, for now, no bleeds. These margins like this, we say OK, and we're presented with our virtual document. There's some pretty useful controls you're going to want to meet down here at the bottom. There is a thing for zooming in and out, because sometimes you want to just kind of get a look at the thing far away, and sometimes you need to see some detail things. The one that looks like a magnifying glass with the number 1 on it is for making it be its actual 100% size. The basics of how you get stuff to show up in this layout program, Scribus, are really happen in just 2 of the tools. I'll show them up here. The one that's currently selected is the select item tool. You use it for doing most stuff. Like if you're gonna select a thing you've made and move it around, you use that tool. If you're gonna make something smaller, you use that tool. It's all the stuff you do for manipulating what you see in front of you. When you want to create things, you start clicking on these other buttons. The insert text frame, insert an image frame. That's like a space for putting a picture in. Insert a render frame. You guys aren't going to do that. Don't worry about it. You're not going to do it. It's like if you're going to put a 3D model in your thing. It's unlikely that for a poster you would need to do that. A thing for creating tables. Over here, there's various geometric shapes you can put in. If you just want something that's already made up that you can manipulate. They've even got jigsaw puzzles and hearts and a penguin. I'm not going to recommend you do a whole lot of that. You might want to get a box or a circle or something like that. Those seem to come up with some regularity when you're doing posters. Penguins, not quite as important to the postering process. There are several other tools. but we're gonna leave those be. Like there's a line making tool and whatnot, like you'd expect to see in a drawing program or something. But we're gonna start off with these first two. I'm not counting the pointer one as a tool. I don't really think it's a tool. I think like that's like you're not selecting a tool at that point, because if you go like this, it doesn't do anything. Whereas if you click on the insert text frame and you click and drag, you see it's creating a box. And this box, as you can see, has edges. If you go up to the edge of it, I'll show it bigger. As you approach the edge of it, it turns into a thing that allows you to resize the box in that way. Or if you're on the edge of it, if you're there, that's for grabbing it and moving it. If you're nearer to the little square thingy, you can use it to like resize it like this. You see, all it really is a container for putting text of some sort, rendered, text coming from a font, into your document. If you double click on it, you end up entering into like a text entering mode, which is not the way I usually put text in, but I'm going to show you it because it's pretty convenient and fast. I'm going to double click, and you see now it's like we've got like a little word processor going here, and I can put in some text. Hi, folks. Text. It's happening. Yay. If I wanted to, I could generate a bunch of text. We're going to start just with this little sentence. You can see it's kind of a small amount of text to have in such a big box. Well, may that be. May you always have that problem, and not the other way around. Having too much text for the box becomes an issue. So, pretty simple. Some text is in a box. I'm going to leave that lay. We're going to get into all kinds of things you can do with that text. I'm going to go to the next tool, which is fundamental to making posters, and that is the image frame tool. And with this one, if you right-click or hold down two fingers and click, or I think there's like let me see, is it Option? Nope. Is it Shift? Nope. If you don't have it set up the way I do on your computer, and if you hold down Control and click, you bring up the local menu for the thing you're clicking on. I don't work that way. I just like to have it set up for like two fingers on the mouse pad or the trackpad, and clicking does this. But that brings up this menu. If you say Get Image, it allows you to put an image into that frame that you've created. So we've got, this is my computer. Meet my computer. There's an image. It's a picture of an internet off switch from a airplane. Anything else fun? This is a illustration of a town. That's fun. This is a lady playing the accordion. Fine, we'll go with that. That looks like it's going to be kind of twee. All right. So there she is. She's not scaled, and she is scaled. She's not scaled inappropriately or disproportionately, because I have those settings set for it to be locked to the original aspect ratio. One of the big problems you see with people doing layouts, particularly when they're working in word processor, is they get their image in there. They anchor it into the paragraph or whatever, and then it needs to be a little smaller, and so they move it, and for whatever reason it's not set to preserve the ratio between how wide it is to how tall it is, and it stretches or squishes the image. You can make it do that in here, but it's going to look bad. Please don't. If you get it in and you can see very little of your image, it's a sign that it's not scaling it to the frame size that you're using, which is the default setting. So we can actually see what those settings are. We're going to go back and visit one of those windows we met earlier, the Properties window, or hit F2. Properties window is great. You use this thing all the time. It's like whenever you want to make a change to something that's more than just moving it around a little bit, although you can do it here. Like you're going to pretty much be here using this this properties menu. In the case of images, the way this thing is set up is like you've got these sort of sideways tabs, or you can think of them like a, I don't know, they look kind of like a hokey filing cabinet that is laid out before you that you choose by clicking on the thing, and it kind of goes to the file folder. It's not really a folder, but it looks like a folder. If you click on the one that says image, you have all the same settings we saw earlier in the preferences. You can see it says scale to frame size proportional. If I take off proportional, you see it's like showing me that she's scaled to the frame size, but she's like wider than she should be because of the aspect ratio of this rectangle that she's in is not proportional to the size of that image itself. And in fact, I can do some wonky things with her now that I've turned that off. And yeah, it looks bad, which is why I say leave this on. Also, free scaling. It's okay to switch over to free scaling, provided that you go over here to where it says X and Y scale, and you click this thing that is meant to look like broken links. The idea is that you're sort of chaining them together so that they preserve their relationship to each other as you change them. And so now you can see that it's scaled to like 9.17%. That's very small. If we wanted to see like how big this image really is, it's quite large. But, you know, it's not going to fit on our page at the size that we have. Even half the size of it barely fits the head. And if I click, double click within this image window, you see you can actually like scroll around on her and like move her around within the frame. That's one reason to have free scaling, is that you can, if you just wanted to have like a piece of a larger image show up, like that looks like it could almost be kind of a neat poster element to have just this lady's face going like that. But, you know, I would say by default you probably want to be able to see images, you know, at a size that you're estimating first and foremost. And then switch to free scaling later when you decide you want to get all artsy about it. So I'm going to switch back. I'm going to fill up this box with a lot of text that I didn't write. It's going to be some example text, so we have a lot more text to play with. If I go to sample text, we can do it in any language you want. The default for English is from Bram Stoker's Dracula. And we'll do 4 random paragraphs of that. Yeah, that's okay. Just go ahead and do it. Boom. And, oops, excuse me. As you can see, there's actually more text than there is space to show the text. One way you can tell that that's happening in this program, and it's worth knowing this, is that over here, there's this little X'd out box that's at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Sorry, of the text box. And it's indicating to you that there's some part of what you've typed in there that isn't being displayed and won't show up in your final result. That's handy, because sometimes there's like, you know, the last letter, like the pluralizing letter of a word that you can't see visually, that it's not showing up, but Scribus catches that that's the situation. Right now, you can see that we're able to, whether this is a feature or not, overlay the image and the text such that neither are particularly easy to look at. But we are able to make some changes about how those elements behave. We could make the text wrap around the image and things like that. If we go and look at, by selecting the text section here, and we go to, I think it's shape. Yeah, there's a section here that decides for, I believe actually it's for this shape, how should text that's nearby it behave? Should it flow around it? What should it be doing? You have some different options about it. You can use the frame shape, which is the shape that's of the thing that's holding the image in it. You can use a thing called the bounding box, or you can use the contour line. Let's start with using the frame shape because it's pretty easy to understand, and then I'm going to show you the contour line because it's pretty nifty. So as soon as I did that, which is to say turned it from being disabled, the text flow for this particular thing, to being something, we see that the text got out of the way of it. Now it got out of the way of it in a way that leaves a whole lot of white space, but nevertheless, it's definitely behaving itself in a nice way. This is not going to work great, but if I go and resize this so that it's closer to where the actual image of the lady is, we get a thing that looks kind of like a conspicuous white square around the image that does, it allows us to read both the text and the image, sure, but it doesn't look very tidy. It would look fine if you were like making I don't know, if you were doing a profile about the person and their image was there and it was like a magazine style layout where you're used to the pictures having captions on them and them being square. That would be okay. But for a poster, not all that stylish. So one of the neat things that you have is, if we go back to shape, over here, if we choose use contour line, that's a whole paragraph that's telling us about that. You can go in and edit that. So the contour line is this imaginary shape that you can make that doesn't have anything to do with what actually is appearing on the screen. It just affects, at least as far as the image or other thing that you're editing, it's just how it affects other things. It's this way of deciding where you want that text to intrude on that square versus, where's the image at, and so on. We could decide, for instance, that her head, it's okay to have text go through because maybe that is okay, easy to read for all we know. It's not, but maybe it is. Whereas the part above her accordion, we want to keep that clear, So to do that, we go up to this part of shape over here, which you often use for if you've got a shape that you've made, like a block of color, and you want to like change what the shape is, like edit it. But in this case, we're just going to use it to edit the frame. So we go edit, and we're greeted with the ability to edit this image frame directly. But we don't want to do that. We want to edit the contour line. So if we go down here and check edit contour line, you'll get a different box to edit. Watch, I'm going to click it. It does not showing up on the projector, but when you look at a full resolution thing, I think it's in pretty good shape. So with that checked, I can go in here and you'll see that while the frame still extends there, I've allowed the text to come through. So you can go in and add these little node spots if you want to have more control over the line that you're making. And go through and we can let some more text come through. You see? And so on. Making it so that we actually have a reasonable, close contour, if that's what we desire, creatively, to make this look good. What's nice is that once we're done, we can move her around and stuff, or before if you want. We can move her around and see, how it affects the text, because once you've got a little shape made up there, you suddenly have something that's going to behave itself a little better than that. Oops, I left that on. Let's take you away. As you can see, these are node editing tools. This one, when I have it selected, adds another spot that I can move, and this one, when I have it, it deletes it. These are for if you want to make there be a curve. So let's try that. So if I decide on this one, oh yeah, here we go. Whoop. And then for this one, I'll move it over so that it sort of goes like that. You get the idea. When you're done, you say end editing. And you're back to your square image frame, but we know that that thing has a contour on it, so that if I move it through the text, it's going to keep preserving, this nice shape that, let me tell you, comes in handy if you're trying to make a poster really fast. I'm going to show you the simple way to make posters. Like the pro way, the way I do it when I'm like trying to get some work done fast, is to do it this way and to come up with the styles for the big thing and the style for the little thing and all that stuff. But that's kind of a lot to take in. I want to show you guys like the way you just do it when you need to get it done and you don't want to have to deal with styles at all. And that is to actually create separate text boxes for the different things you're trying to work with. So this is the things that we've written. This is our copy. You can see it's actually kind of cool because it, like, as you get near the image, it styles up right. Like it lays itself out. Which is one nice reason to have it that way. I'm going to do a thing to duplicate this text box. You can do it, how can you do it? In a way you can see. Under Edit, well, I think you can copy and paste. I think there's a thing called duplicate. Oh, here it is, under the Item menu. I just keep doing Command D or Apple D or Control D if I'm on a computer that uses that. But to show you where it is, it's up there under Item Duplicate. And what it does is it makes another one of the same thing. So I'm going to do that again and again, just so that I have a few different ones. That's not how you would do it. You would probably be going around making little text boxes that have the things in them. But this is quick. Ooh, look at that. It lost its style. Interesting. Because it went back to the default style at that spot. We can switch that up. So Appearing Tonight is one. The Count himself, Mr. Dracula, is one. We'll leave those together. And I'm going to resize this so that it's, roughly where those guys are. Let's make 8 p.m. to 4 p.m. be 1. This is for, the easiest way to make a poster. And frankly, for years, this is how I've used it, and it's been fine. Now, I was like, oh, I should learn a few more ways to work with this thing. I've gotten to the point where I like using the styles because I want to try things out really quickly and not have to go around changing everything. But for this, it's going to be great. And then the $10, $5 with blood donation, that'll be its own thing. I'm doing this specifically because I want to be able to show you guys how to manually adjust the text settings. And also because, if this is all you learn, you'll be able to make good posters. So you see, this is way too small. But we're starting with putting them some places. Just so that they're kind of roughly where they're going to go. And we'll go back and change how they look. So all I need to do is just select that box that's, the text frame. And I can actually take the properties window here and change what the text looks like within it by changing these settings. I'm going to make this box a little bigger because I actually kind of want this thing to be sort of largish. I can start by making, this be a much larger thing. Big. And going back to text, I'm going to show you that there are some things you can do that change the styling of it pretty dramatically, and they're useful to find because it makes stuff look good. Under color and effects here, you can of course get colors for things, but we're not going to start with that. There's some nice things. The all caps is a nice thing. It transforms things to being capitalized. The small caps also. Am I spelling appearing correctly? Okay, cool. Thanks. Also useful. Reverse text, not particularly helpful. Um, this is shadowed text, which doesn't look great right now, but if I change the shading of this one to being a little more subtle, it can make stuff stand off of the page a little. I don't know. I think it's a little tacky looking right now. And there's a few others, like if you want to make there be a superscript or subscript, underline text and whatnot. Those are all available to you. But I find that the small caps and the large caps are pretty helpful, particularly when you're doing this. So if I want to do this whole box of the Count himself, Mr. Dracula, I do the same thing. Go through. You can see why the styles helps is because it sort of makes a lot of stuff happen uniformly. One thing you're going to note as you keep going larger and larger is that these things will run into each other, which is no good. I mean, it looks bad. That's because the line spacing is something that you've set, and it's defaults to fixed line spacing, which means that you can go in manually and decide how far away they should be, or you can go in and say automatic, and they'll just kind of make a guess for you based on some settings. This is the text wrapping right now. You can, of course, do what do you call it? Text alignment. So you have choices about whether you want to do things centered or have them stretch out. That's almost never helpful unless you're doing like a newspaper style columns. That would be a thing for doing that kind of justifying with. But you're able to do this. You can go into more of the style settings. That would be if you were actually setting a style on this one directly. You can change the offset of the first line from the top like that. Oops, excuse me. As for columns and text distances, these can be kind of nice if you have a shape that you're in and you want to like give a little space around it, particularly since I guess I haven't shown you guys this at all because we haven't talked about color at all. But these boxes that have text in them have several properties to them that can actually show up. Like the box itself, you could change the color of it. Let's say you wanted the box itself to be green because you've got bad taste. And that's just what happens. The box itself has this color thing. And so if you're trying to make a box that has, words in it, this looks really bad right now. I can go and make it kind of be like closer to the size of the thing. But what you're going to find is that, it doesn't really look good because the text is right up against the edge. And so if you're, trying to make elements that, were showing up in color blocks, which is a thing that people do. Going through and making the text distances a little bit, giving them some space here. Sorry, like 2 and 2 and 2. Maybe more. Let's go 8. I can't see. 8. Sorry, typing on 2 screens. And top. Let's give that 8. All right, you can see now there's a little bit of room, and actually it's showing up to let you know where those text margins are, just like on the edge of the main document. That's not going to appear in the design you're doing. It's just informing you. If you want to view it without seeing that, you've got all these options of things that you don't have to look at. Like if you don't want to see frames anymore, you see the box around that went away. If you select it, it'll show up again. But if you don't want to see margins for the whole thing, they'll go away. Text frame columns. That's the one that removes that. if you wanted to make this not this shape that's the text box not be so pointy at the corners, like give it a softer corner. If you select it and go to shape, the thing we saw before, and look at round corners and change that to being a small number. Let's say you can't make it out so much, but you can see it's curved there. If I wanted to make it be a corner that's more noticeable, I might try it being a little bigger. Yeah, you can see it's sort of a friendlier looking square to not be so pointy at the end. It has a little bit softer style. It's kind of dramatic how much not having a pointy edge to your ridiculously green thing is. Likewise, if you wanted to go in and make the text be a different color than black on the green, because the black looks bad to my eye, you can go into blah 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 the text section where it says color, and for example, you could have it be white, and you can see that at the level where it's actually printed, it's going to look kind of okay, whereas on the preview we're seeing, at least with this display, it looks kind of jaggy. It's just the view we're seeing. It'll print out a nicer color than that, or sorry, a nicer way than that. So. Or we can go into text and say, sorry if I'm lingering on this too long, it just looks kind of bad to me. Kind of self Mr. Dracula, kind of self Mr. Dracula. Some such thing. All shapes, all boxes, and also frames, like for images, have the ability to have background color like this. And they also have the ability to have an outline, the line, which can be styled. So if we select appearing tonight, let's say, and we go down to colors, you'll note that colors has two sections. There's like the thing that looks like a bucket of paint, let's say, and the thing that looks a bit like someone's painting a line. These are the colors for the line, which is the outline of the thing, versus the paint bucket. And right now, paint bucket's at none, line is at none. It means nothing is showing. It's invisible. It's not affecting the document in a color way at all. So if I go to line and I make it be black, you can see it. It's right there. Does it look good? No. But you can definitely, thanks. You can definitely, use it. Having selected it, there's another section called line where you can change the styling of it. We're going to do a quick example of a layout using the techniques that we've just covered. So what you're seeing is that I'm making a poster that's got some different text in it, and it's got the image, and as you can see, I created an outline background for it to kind of give it a frame. And you just kind of go through and you move the elements around until you reach a point where it looks good. As you can see, I take a little while to go through. This is a very much speeded up version of what I did to make this. But here you go. This is what it looks like. It's all just text and images of that one image.